and early next week, by the way. So it's a pretty big phase with the Covalent network, and we're delighted to have everyone with us as we're taking this journey. How did you choose your first network operators? Yeah, we wanted to go with service providers who had a proven track record in the industry. So the likes of ChorusOne, Low-Fee Validation, Beware, and not to mention a few of these guys actually already use the unified Covalent API for their services too. And then we're also focused on like the likes of University of Calgary, who are our research partners, and we provided a grant for those guys to get a node up and running. So at the moment with the Covalent network, the main focus has been getting guys who have proven track records with servicing networks, and the reason why we're actually focusing on this is because the software that these guys will be running is compute intensive for their machines, to say the least. And while that will actually decrease over time, that intensity, for the initial phase, we want these guys to be able to keep their nodes up and running, especially given the fact that we already have traction with the API. We certainly don't want any downtime or the network to experience any downtime when we do flip the switch towards the network servicing the API, for example. Thank you, Daniel. All right, we're still waiting. So please get any more questions in to fill the dead air. Yeah, sweet. Let me just check the Telegram. Okay, they're coming now. We'll be starting in two or 3 minutes. Out of curiosity, does anyone actually delegate directly to ChorusOne on other networks? Does anyone in the chat actually do that? And if you do, why? Pranay is also in the chat room, and he's the main mastermind behind developing the Covalent network, or one of them actually, should I say? Oh, sweet, nice. Okay, Xavier's blurred out.
Xavier wants to stay anon.
Hey.
Let me turn off that background filter. Oh, sorry, 1 second.
No, you're fine. Take your time.
All right.
How's the retreat going?
Yeah, very good. We are actually in like the Indian Swiss theme party tonight. So
oh, nice.
Really looking forward, but also obviously looking forward to this panel.
Yeah, well, thanks a million for joining. I know you guys are busy as is, so it's a pleasure to have you guys on board, or at least on the webinar. So just to provide some context to this conversation, so this is part 2 of the Covalent Network Partner Series. And with the Covalent Network, we're distributing the Covalent stack. And what this will look like is many nodes on the network actually running the software that we currently run. The first of which is the block specimen producer. And this just involves extracting blockchain data using a patch that sits on top of Go Ethereum, and then formatting it into a block specimen, which together represent a block and its constituent elements. And this is a crucial technology in the Covalent network alongside the proof system that we're employing to ensure that the data is verifiable. And over the past few months, we've had discussions with service providers such as ChorusOne in actually recruiting the initial cohort of operators that are going to be on the Covalent network, and one of which is ChorusOne, who we are joined by today. So Felix, Xavier, if you want to introduce yourselves, what are your origin stories? Let the people know who you guys are.
Yeah, so thanks so much for the intro there, Niall. So I'm Xavier, currently Research and Ventures Lead at ChorusOne. So I joined Chorus about a year ago through Felix, who I met a few years before that. Currently doing a lot of work looking into new networks and what that means for Chorus, and also supporting networks through infrastructure, but also research.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm Felix. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at ChorusOne. So I joined the team very early in 2018 when it was basically just our co-founders, Brian and Meher, that also maybe people know from the Epicenter podcast. And since then, obviously, we have developed into like quite a big organization. We've been running proof of stake networks or like in general, I guess, infrastructure for decentralized networks since then, and are now active on almost 30 networks. And I've been like part of that journey in different roles, and yeah, super excited. So a lot of the things I've been doing were like research or business development, and now it's all kind of turning into their own teams. And yeah, super happy to be here and chat a little bit with how we have approached topics like, researching the networks, how we onboard networks, how we work with our network partners, and much more.
Yeah, of course. So you talked a bit there about ChorusOne in general and what the history you guys do. But let's actually treat this as a means to, I guess, educate delegators. So treat me as a delegator, I guess. Why should someone be staking with ChorusOne, with the hosting network that you guys support? And you can treat this as a quick pitch per se.
Yeah, I'll take that, I guess.
All right.
Yeah. So I think at a very high level, right, we are there are these decentralized networks. The core idea of it, there's like different entities maintaining them. For a lot of the function of the token in general is kind of to participate in that system. Now, depending on the technical expertise, that might mean you can run the node infrastructure yourself, but ChorusOne in general, the idea is we do that for you. So you just have to basically have the token, stake it in the network, and you're implicitly participating in providing the function that the network does, which in Covalent's case is providing the data API and all the data that many of the dApps and wallets use. Mm-hmm. So why would you do that with ChorusOne? The idea is, we take the burden of you. We have 24/7 on-call of engineers around the world that look at our infrastructure, that it's always online. We have built like over the past 4 years systems to ensure that we are performant. And on top of that, we have a team of researchers to kind of really look at the network in the sense of how maybe where are the shortcomings, what does it try to achieve, how can we support that vision. That might be like articles writing like how certain functions in network work, but it might also be feedback on the token design. It might also be just in general observing what we are seeing on our infrastructure, like maybe there is a lot of queries. So we're really looking forward to see how this will be in the Covalent network. Of course, it's already a very vibrant ecosystem with a lot of things happening. So we expect that we will hopefully be able to contribute back some of our experience on other networks to the ecosystem at large.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And with regard to metrics, then, what are the core metrics that a delegator should look at for from your guys' perspective? I guess like you obviously have commission rate, uptime, and whatnot. But is there anything else more? Because when I was doing research on this, there seems to be very little to differentiate service providers when it comes to metrics per se. Usually they're measured against usually the same ones. But is there any other ones in particular that you might focus on?
I think one differentiator, not so much a metric per se that we have at the moment, we have a protection pool for all delegators, which means if Covalent has a slashing penalty for any validator at any stage, delegators are protected. Of course, when a delegator stakes their asset with ChorusOne, they're putting that at stake, which means that that can be slashed if we misbehave in any way, or if we just go down for some unknown reason, or if we miss some block. It can be any minor or major penalty. We will cover delegators up to a certain amount that can be read at our website if you search the delegator protection pool. So that's one nice differentiator that I think we have versus some other validators. And aside from that, when it comes to metrics, you can also look at other things like number of networks other node operators are on, number of delegators these node operators have. If you're really interested, like for example, you could always check us out on some network and look at the amount of people that have delegated to us, perhaps the amount of stake that we have across all these networks. I think, some of these larger validators such as ChorusOne that are on many networks and also that have some stake, delegated to them, that is sort of a sign of faith and confidence in our delegators that are already existing. that they trust our infrastructure, and we hope that we can also bring the same secure infrastructure to Covalent, and hopefully as well onboard a new type of customer to Chorus for the first time, Covalent.
Yeah. When did you guys implement that protection pool?
At some point last year, I think it's one of the things that Xavier also pushed for.
Nice.
The idea is, in the end, a lot of people always ask about, they're slashing, and we have like institutional clients that want to have slashing protection, and we have certain maybe special agreements with them, but we were like, no, we want to do this more widely. We want to have this covered for all our delegators, also the retail and just everyone. So we want to have like one for everything. And we do this like self-insurance model where we have a certain pool of funds that we will use for these kind of purposes. So the criteria you can look up, as they've said. The idea is, we want to have the same coverage for everyone. Of course, the other problem was insurance in this space is still very early. There's no insurance companies or like if there are, that's very expensive. So we decided to do it like ourselves. But we're looking forward to increasing that in the future, and of course, doing everything to have a performant and secure service.
Yeah, I also just want to quickly add to that. If that's all right, Niall.
Of course, work away.
I guess like the reason we created the Delegator Protection Pool, otherwise known as DPP, if you search it, is because it can be quite unclear for delegators on many networks, like what a validator actually does, and like transparency is like a key value for us as a company. And so we are, as like anytime there's anything we miss, for example, like let's say we missed earning our delegator some form of rewards, we post it and publish it straight away, the exact amount of rewards delegators could have missed. So like the reason behind that and the idea why we do that is because we want to make the delegator experience like as seamless as possible, so they don't have to worry about tracking and monitoring their validator to see if it's going down or if it's earning them the optimum rewards. So like 99.999% of the time it should be optimum rewards, but just on that very small probability that anything happens at any time, where you're not forced to track that basically.
Yeah, nice. Was there any particular inspiration behind that? I know Aave have a similar mechanism in place to protect user funds as well in case of liquidations and whatnot. Or was it just a novel idea?
Dave is a big Aave bull, so I would assume it's the inspiration.
No, I think it's quite unique. It comes down to complexity. I think it's not even about the staking or rewards or anything else. It's like, as a delegator, if I wasn't working at ChorusOne, I want to like know who I'm delegating to and see their faces, and also know like it's not on me, like it's not on my onus to actually follow up these validators and see, okay, am I earning the maximum amount of rewards? Because at the end of the day, if you're not earning the maximum amount of rewards, like you may as well just go to another validator. And at the same time, if you're not having the easiest experience, then that's also like a hardship for a delegator.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the switching cost between going between different service providers is only decreasing, especially as we see further adoption on lower cost chains. But why do we flip this from I guess your guys' perspective? And Xavier, I know we had this discussion in the past. So what do you guys look for when deciding to support a network? And specifically, what did you guys see with Covalent when deciding to come on board?
Yeah, maybe I'll take that and Felix can add to it. So a lot of what I learned and also how we do it at Chorus is through like Felix's initial framework that he created sort of in his time doing my role. But a lot of it, so it's kind of like analyzing any protocol or network for us is understanding the amount of resources it takes for us to onboard, and also the value of that when we deploy these resources. So what that means is there might be many networks that either contact us or perhaps other networks that we have found, for example. Then there's initial contact and we have a chat like this. I think Felix and I actually were the ones that talked to Covalent all that, like maybe a year ago now. And they were looking for validators, and, there's a connection with the team normally. I guess you can understand their vision and what they're building, and also uniqueness can really count. So like with Covalent, for example, we've thought it was really unique the way in which they're sort of creating this API for anyone to use, including myself. Like I actually had a chat with someone from Covalent at the Avalanche Summit a few weeks ago who was saying like, I'm a sort of non-technical researcher, which means I wouldn't choose to use programming, yet like there's some chance with Covalent there'll be many people like me who are interested in crypto research but don't have to know all the background knowledge. So we really liked when we spoke to Covalent, for example, the product itself. And then apart from that, can come down to the tech stack as well. So Covalent for us, like we're already across many different chains. We have nodes running on all these chains. So there was some vibes and synergies there between what you're doing and what we want to support. And maybe finally, I guess for us, there's sort of three different like layers of the stack that we're looking at onboarding at the moment. So the first is proof of stake, which of course Covalent fits into. The second is sort of middleware, which we also believe that Covalent fits into, like making dApps, more usable and more user-friendly, I guess. And so we really believe Covalent's, taking huge strides there. And we want to support the types of networks that onboard the next 100 million to 1 billion users. So there was just like a lot of match between what Covalent is doing and, how we thought we could support it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's too much to add for me. I think, on a wider sense, right? We also had Ganesh on our podcast, and we have a long-standing relationship also with him. I think he's also a big fan of the Epicenter podcast, and Meher and Brian. So yeah, I guess there was also this dimension to it that is interesting. We do a lot to educate our users what the networks are doing, and this goes back way long. And I think Covalent obviously is doing a lot in this direction too. So I feel like there's great alignment there. Like even this webinar, of course, other resources that Covalent provides, like blog articles and guides, and I think even these challenges that were there, how to use the API. So I think that's really well aligned with us. So in this case, we're really looking forward to be part of it.
Yeah, we're great to have you guys on board as well. And if anyone actually does, I'd highly recommend checking out that podcast that Ganesh was on with you guys. You guys went into a lot of detail about the network. So I'd highly recommend anyone who's curious about that to check that out. So if we were to zoom out a bit more and look at the space as a whole, so I've tried to do some research in, I guess, for the service provider industry, and it seems to be lacking when compared to other aspects. So if you guys are the experts, so please educate me here. So how have you guys seen, I guess, the service provider space evolve since ChorusOne began over the past few years?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's probably a good question for me. So initially, it was really like kind of interesting because obviously there are a lot of ideas around crypto protocols, and I feel like a lot of folks that worked initially in crypto either build like their own protocol or maybe work on an exchange, because like trading is like a function that's pretty clear, right? That you want to like be able to exchange your tokens. But then this other thing came about, right? Like if you read the white papers, there's this idea, okay, now we need these node operators that operate those networks. And really Cosmos is one of the first networks, maybe with Tezos, where this became like really a function that you need. And then there was the community of these two networks where like sometimes it's just the individual starting out operating a node, and I think that's actually still true today. But of course, it has matured a lot. In the beginning, when the Cosmos network started, everyone was kind of a small fish. There was no like big company betting a lot on it. It was like all startups or even just individuals running the nodes, and no one really knew how to do this, because this is really like cutting edge technology, right? There is no one that launched a decentralized network in this or distributed system with different organizations before. So it was a learning experience for a lot of them, and the community has contributed a lot, and best practices have evolved in terms of like, how do you actually deploy things? How do the protocols communicate back with the validators? And we've been part of that from the start. And I think hopefully also did our part in this. In general, I guess nowadays, in the beginning was a bit simpler. Also, maybe the users of these networks or the delegators, the token holders were, people that participated in these sales or had the token somehow, maybe on their ledger. Now we have a much wider range of participants. We have like hedge funds, we have institutional clients that use custodians. And with those different participants, a lot of different requirements come also for us node operators. So we really need to it's becoming an industry that's more professionalizing, more moving a little bit into a model that maybe other industries like a similar trajectory. But I would also highlight that it's still possible for others to participate and run nodes on some networks as an individual, even, because that's, I guess, also the ethos about crypto, right? Like we should be able to participate easily, or if you cannot, then at least also there's delegation. So you're always able to delegate and still be part of this core function, really maintaining the network, participating in governance, doing other things.
Yeah. No, I think like it is one particularly interesting point is how the audience has, I guess, matured per se, away from just being retail towards these institutional service providers, and how you guys have to adapt to that as well. Because I think if you guys set the gold standard where you're attracting these institutional players, by default, the retail are going to follow, I think, as well. And the overall stakeholder map, let's say, if you were to paint a picture, I think certainly in the earlier days, you just have like you have the service providers and the enthusiasts who are running the nodes. Has that evolved as well with time? Are you seeing more people actually running this infrastructure?
Yeah, I think, let me take this again. I guess there are, yeah, certainly it can develop quickly, right? Like, I think a good way to start out is, many people start out like, oh, I'm just interested in network. The first thing I can do is maybe try to run such a validator. That has often been one of the key points. I think over time, this has actually developed as like, now maybe you just use the API and you're in Covalent's case, right? And in your user, in that sense, you don't necessarily need to operate the block specimen producer to do that. So I think there are different user groups that you can be a part of, and you can still stake and delegate. In the beginning, it was also like a little bit a way to learn about the protocol, maybe, or in general, how this space operates. And I feel like even some of the people that started out as node operators are actually moving away from it again, where they're like, okay, now I want to build a protocol, or I want to do like other things. So there's like kind of both things. It's a good way to start, but it's also like some point when you want to turn it into real business, you realize, oh, there is actually a lot to it. You know, I need to be awake all the time. What if I want to go traveling? This is like, sometimes then you need a team, but do you actually want that? So it's really, yeah, I guess there's a lot of sides to it where then you have like some dedicated companies doing that. And I think that's a natural evolution, and it's all going well overall, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing we can all agree on is you want a network that's more distributed. You want more nodes supporting the blockchain and whatnot in the network. So how do we actually improve adoption at this level? Like for me, for example, I don't have the infrastructure to actually be running these nodes for certain blockchains. How do you actually see us removing the barriers? First off, what are the barriers you see preventing people from running the infrastructure themselves? And is this the primary method that we will actually improve adoption at this level of the stack? Pretty loaded question, by the way, but
that's right. I can have a crack to answer the question like this sort of recently. I think it comes down to how can you scale decentralization of a network basically, and make sure as many nodes as possible can access and participate in the network. I think it comes down to many things. So one thing that ChorusOne for sure does and continues to do is we like, if there are smaller node operators that want to get involved with the network and they have any questions, we're normally in these Discords and Telegrams, and we're always like chatting with these other validators, like, wanting to spin up a node. We, of course, like there is a bit of an art to running a node operating business, of course, because, we've been on so many networks now, and we do repeat the process in some way, and the process is good, we'd like to think. And so if in any way we can help these smaller validators, like, onboard their own nodes onto Covalent, of course, for us, like, it's just, there's so many positives of decentralizing a network. I mean, like the first thing is that there's less stress on our node, because if you distribute the load to more nodes, then there's less for us to like have to sort of stay on top of. The second thing is as well, for the security of the network, of course, it makes the network more secure. And again, like, we're just a participant in the network, one participant securing it. Of course, this means that we also want to help other participants that want to spin up their own nodes. And that's, of course, the great thing about delegation, is that for those that don't want to spin up their own node, as Felix mentioned before, there's been years of people testing and trialing, their own node to see if they're up for the challenge, because it is a challenge running nodes. And so I think it's like, there's a lot of respect for node operators between each other, like, I guess, how they organize their company. I always say this, but it's true. There's not really competition in the node operator space. It's very like co-opetition, which means like we want to help each other. We have a lot of respect for each other, and we'd help other people to join a network, in a heartbeat if we could, if that helps us in a way too.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, right? It's like such a early space overall still, even now. Like, we're of course a few years in, but still now you can see the potential of this is of course still very big, or untapped potential, and there is room for enough players. So like, anyone that can be encouraged is welcome. And I think in the process of that, we develop better practices, better tooling that allow more people to participate, hopefully. And I guess also like we build services that maybe others can use, that we maybe would like build for other validators that also is a business model for us and they use it, or some things like that could develop, right? And hopefully in the end we have a diverse set of node operators and I guess also token holders. There is a lot of different angles of decentralization. I think in the beginning of a network, it's kind of natural for it to be also like a little bit more decentralized potentially, but that doesn't mean if the right checks and balances are in place or if it's on the right trajectory that it can't go away from this or it will stay like this. Even I think we have seen like in Cosmos, right? There are still new validators launching like 4 years into the thing. Of course, it's not that easy to start anew, but if you, for example, have a certain edge, like let's say you're a really community focused, we have a few friends in the Cosmos ecosystem that started doing like a lot of content, YouTube videos, bringing new people in the community and establishing themselves. And then they also were able to like establish themselves in the validator set. And that's of course beautiful to see, also to realize, okay, this is like a community that keeps evolving and moving instead of like, you know, just the old guys staying there and the decaying.
Yeah. So you touched on a co-opetition, if I'm saying that correctly. Do you think this will actually stay in place over the next few years, or do you think competition will gradually ramp up with time? Like I certainly think competition is like, especially on the application layer and the likes of wallets, once you see switching costs decrease, I think that's when the wallet wars per se are going to kick off. Like once those switching costs are down. Do you think co-opetition will remain in place, or do you think competition is going to heat up?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in some spaces, competition is like exactly what you want. In the node operating space, it's a very unique space, which means like the amount of networks that go live now and the amount of like quite strong and quality node operators, they're like quite simply sometimes isn't enough node operators to go around anymore because there's so much innovation happening in crypto. So in that way, without competition, if there was competition and there was only like a few, like 8 to 10, let's say, on every network, like every network would be very similar, wouldn't it? Because the decentralization would be sort of similar. So yeah, I think like from our perspective, I guess the people that we do a lot of our work with, like some of the larger validators, especially, you know, for example, in our research, like when Felix and I research these networks like Covalent, let's say we might have missed a network, you know, because we can't be everywhere. Crypto space is such a big space. I guess, you know, they might let us know, oh, have you missed this protocol? Like, we're going to validate it. Like, maybe you guys should look into it. And it's the same for us. Like, if there was a small validator in some Discord or Telegram and Covalent, for example, and they're like, oh, like, you know, what do you think about this network? You know, if we've onboarded it, of course, we can share the information there as well. So it's a lot about knowledge transfer, I think, in the validation space, because it's so new and so difficult that if you did it by yourself, okay, there's some chance you might be the best, but at the same time, it's not very fun at the top if no one else can join you and like have fun with you, at least in the validator space.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the topic of, I guess, achieving max decentralization or distribution, or whatever you want to call it, I think there's also a responsibility on the protocol level, especially in like the middleware section of the stack. Like with the Covalent network, we're designing it in a way that it's easy to implement a node, given that we're building essentially just patches on top of the current infrastructure that you guys are running, so that it's extremely easy to actually onboard you guys and to increase the number of nodes down the line who are running on the Covalent network. So to move away from the technical aspects, what about community? So community is a big aspect of the entire space. How important is community from the service provider's perspective? Do you think there should be a direct line of communication to the community for ChorusOne, for example? And if so, why?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it's very important, right? I mean, we are on here because we want to meet the community in some sense. So I think there is often a certain communication that happens from us to the community, and we release content, of course, we do things, but we also like, we really enthusiastic if someone comes and asks us questions, because we can only think of so many things to write content about and cover. But if someone asks, oh, we know there's interest in that specific thing, and we're happy to answer, and that will also inspire us to maybe like the direction that we want to go in. So like that's really something we're looking to. In terms of like direct for a protocol, I think we have our own kind of community channels, right? We have our Telegram. Of course, we might not have a like Discord channel on every different protocol. It's sometimes hard to keep track of all of this. Also, I can admit it's like not an easy thing at times. And maybe if you want to reach us, right, like come join our Telegram directly and ask there if you don't find us answering in the Covalent Discord or something could well be the better path. So yes, I would say it's.
I also want to add quickly as well, just I guess so people understand the significance of like the importance of community to ChorusOne. So you got Felix on the line here, who's Chief Commercial Officer. And not only can you reach us on Telegram, but we also have like a little help thing, support thing on our own website, Chorus.one. So of course, if you're a delegator on Covalent, you're more than welcome to like ask a question there about your own stake or whatever. And we have Felix, the Chief Commercial Officer, of a company of 40 people or whatever it is right now. And he's still the one like answering these people of the community, like, well, sometimes, but he still does it. I think it's really special, like the way that we care about, what people are doing, and if they have problems, like we want to help them. We also have another guy called Rishi, who's like sort of leading our community efforts there, who's a super nice guy and really helpful. So yeah, for us, like community, like contributing back, supporting, helping in any way, like, we've been in the space for a while now. Like if we can help other people get to the same level we're at, like that's a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that direct line of communication to the likes of, I guess, the senior members of the team is something completely novel to the space that we're in. Like it's probably one of the best features of it, especially since like I came from like a Web2 background, like a TradFi background almost. And for me to be able to go to like the CEO wasn't even like in my imagination to be able to even do that. So yeah, it's certainly a unique aspect of the space, and I certainly hope it's not one that goes away with time. And then with governance, let's say, so is governance something you guys pay attention to, and would you guys actually see yourselves participating in governance of the protocols that you support? And yeah, it's a two-part question. That, and do you think enough service providers actually participate in governance as a whole with the protocols that they're supporting?
Yeah, maybe I'll take that first, and Felix can elaborate. But so for us, governance is really important. I guess as an organization scale, such as ChorusOne, you have resources doing different things. And as of course, if you're on many networks, it can get harder to manage and to track. So luckily at ChorusOne now, we've onboarded 4 or 5 researchers, let's say in the past 3 or 4 months. And now we place an emphasis on governance. We actually have a, objective key result to be on and voting on at least like minimum 90% of governance proposals across all networks. So this has been something we've been like really working on and and not only voting on governance, like, we're using on-chain data to see how other people are voting, and looking at that to like analyze it and think, okay, how are these people like voting? Is this actually, going to help the network be more successful in the long term and be sustainable? So now we've just recruited someone else who's like actually somehow specialized in like crypto governance. So like we actually have someone with like sort of experience in this area. I think for us, like in the research team, especially, governance is really huge. And like we want to be across as many votes as possible on as many networks. And not only that, but also like do an analysis networks, like what the governance is, who's voting, how the votes is being distributed in some way, and like what the actual impact is to the network itself. So we can for sure imagine in the future with Covalent, like using the same governance tools we have to not only do our own voting and make sure we're there all the time, but also to analyze how other people are voting to make sure the network's going to be as successful as possible in the future.
Yeah, maybe to add, like, right, it's also about like us stating our reasoning in the end about why we're voting a certain way. So if there is a controversial governance vote, let's say, or like something where the input is needed, we will try to like read up on that and give our hot take. So I have to say, in reality, this doesn't happen that often. Also, it depends kind of on the network. Some communities are really like, there is a lot of these discussions happening. For example, in Cosmos, we have Juno. Like recently, there is a lot of like heated debate going on. Sometimes it's also hard for us to keep up with this because, of course, that is one of our networks, and we only have so much energy and time too. But of course, if there's like something that we really think, okay, here is our input needed, we'll definitely comment on it, and we will like follow our kind of guidelines, our values, which are also on our website, to come to these decisions. So in a way, you will be able to know what you're up to if you vote with us or like stake with us, and if the governance votes are delegated to us. This kind of depends on the protocol design, of course, how it actually works out in the end.
Yeah, completely. I think there's certainly a responsibility on you guys. Can say like with like how much of a stake you guys hold in the network, but like it's a good point to make that you won't just vote for the sake of voting. You'll actually put in the time and research so that you make an educated vote. Because it's certainly a thing in this space is anyone can just click on the yes or no snapshot vote if they hold the tokens, and they may not actually put in the time and the research to make an educated vote. And it could have huge implications down the line. So I know you guys are at a retreat. I won't keep your time too much longer. But two final questions. So what do you guys want to see more of from networks that you guys actually support?
I think maybe I can start. This is a tough
Go for it.
I have one sort of simple one, which is just like, actually maybe two, is like communication from the networks themselves. So like, of course, with us, we're managing a lot of different networks. We have to manage our own resources internally and make sure we're actually upgrading on time, for example. And like one thing that really helps us is if a network communicates like an upgrade, like well in advance of it happening. And then also not only communicating it, but also like following up, like, you know, following up in case we missed it for any reason. So yeah, I would say like to wrap up, like just communication and also like time to, you know, make sure we can be there for certain upgrades are like two key ones for me.
Yeah. Maybe I can add, like, I guess, yeah, I think what it comes down to is also like realizing, yeah, we have like other things, and there is like a lot of information coming to us. Of course, we do our best to filter through the important information, and we have our processes to like from let's say the research team to the engineers, that they have the filtered information and we are aware of everything. But yeah, something can get lost along the line, and the better the processes are that the network team has in place, the more likely it is you retain a nice community and happy kind of node operators. I think that what also plays into that is, in general, I guess, documentation of what is happening in general. I feel like Covalent is doing a great job there, right? There's a lot of docs I've seen on different parts of the protocol of also what we are doing, but also beyond that, right? Like people use the API. I think it's very ingrained in the Covalent culture, and even like I guess we are not doing that well ourselves internally. So also something for us to get inspiration.
So communication, lead time, and great documentation is pivotal for you guys to support a network. All right, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, why is ChorusOne excited to be supporting the Covalent network? Give us a big end quote here to finish things up.
Maybe I can start. I mean, Felix and I in general, ever since we first founded the network, have been incredibly optimistic about like the power of it and what it can do. And like we've watched it go from sort of the initial stages a year ago now to like getting ready to launch for mainnet. Like for us, like Felix and I both, of course, like originally in research, Felix, and also me in research now, we're like data bulls. You know, there's so much data on blockchain in general where it's like all transparent, but like how can you make sense of this data? It's such a new field, and I think no one's really hit the sweet spot yet in terms of like getting it really nicely done for anyone to use the data and actually make sense of it for their own content or for their own understanding. So in that way, I guess like for us as a company and also like internally with some individual members, like, you know, we're really optimistic on like how much you can promote the use of data to understand these networks better in terms of everything. It's like, and I think in general, like it might be cliche, but you know, the power of Covalent and the data that people can use to understand a network or a protocol or application and whatever it may be, is that as a middleware that Covalent is, you're really increasing the usability of these applications, and not just the usability, but also, I guess, the intelligence of the people who actually own these protocols and applications that they didn't have before. So yeah, for us, that's like amazing to be able to support that, and not only support it in a way that you've been doing it before, but just to decentralize it. Not only the great product you already have, because I think, you know, we all agree that Covalent product is, if not one of the best in the whole space with what you're actually doing. So to be able to participate and support that as you decentralize the product, you know, I think it's gonna be amazing and be like a first of its kind, I guess.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just to add to that, I guess in general, it's very nice for us, as there are, of course, a lot of copycats around in crypto. There are some core innovations in general. There are like some networks that do interesting things, and then there are others that just copying it. Covalent is obviously a very innovative thing, and also focusing on a layer that many ignore because it's hard. We ourselves tried doing like some data products because we had the need for data, and we realized, oh God, this is maybe also not our expertise directly. And we're like super happy to, you know, come in where we have the expertise and have others that have like a vision for how you design this kind of system. do that, and we just can operate the nodes and profit from like using the product ourselves, but also like kind of contributing back our expertise. What I would say is also in general, the Covalent, what is interesting is there is this product, right? As we said, it already has found certain product market fit, and that obviously makes it for us super exciting to just become part of that, instead of just becoming part of like some idea that someone wrote in a white paper and not really knowing if there's going to be like interest in that. That's I think something that stands out in Covalent.
Yeah, I think it's the playbook that people should follow in general, where you actually get product market fit first, build up community, and then focus on decentralizing and distributing the stack then. I think only then you're ready. I think there should be no pretense of tokens or decentralization until you actually have product market fit. But yeah, I appreciate the kind words for Covalent. We have a few questions that came in from the community. So, what are the infrastructure problems that could appear? Is there a maximum number of validators that will work on the Covalent network, and is there a limited number of nominators? So with the maximum number of validators, we're keeping that to 10 for the initial phase, and then we'll gradually ramp that up as the network is developed. And will ChorusOne run nodes for all stages of the pipeline? And what do you guys make of the block specimen producers? So I guess that's over to you guys.
Yeah, that's, I guess, a pretty interesting question. Of course, there are different parts of the Covalent stack, and we at the start, right, will operate a block specimen producer because that's the first part that's going to be decentralized. And I think that's also the one where we already like as Niall said earlier, we're building on top of like some infrastructure that we already have running for many networks in terms of like the archive nodes or full nodes in general for the networks, where we're plugging this in, and it's just kind of a natural, nice synergistic thing. We will have to, of course, evaluate for the other roles. I think it will, we'll see how that will go. I think in general, we're interested to support where we can. If we will realize maybe another role is not fitting for us, then yeah, maybe we won't run that. We'll see. But that's also the beauty of it. I think there will be like a choice. So that's great. And then what do you guys make of the block specimen producer? It's amazing. I think it's a very cool way to like abstract and like bring back something like this a format that is kind of designed to be consumed from someone that looks at the data instead of what the blockchain usually does, which is just like state transitions. So yeah, awesome. So
yeah, and just Franco, the infrastructure problems that could appear. So the reason why this has actually been taking so long for us to actually get to this point in the network is because we've been mitigating or developing the network in a way that it's mitigated against the infrastructure problems. So the infrastructure problems could be that the underlying nodes go down, the BSP patch doesn't exactly produce block specimens and doesn't stream them to the storage instances. But we've developed in such a way that we've mitigated fully against these. There obviously is some unknown unknowns against these issues, but so we've certainly taken steps to actually prevent this from happening. So Felix, Xavier, thanks so much for joining today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and it's been an absolute pleasure. To the community as well, we have part 3 of the Covalent Network Partner Series with Nomad and Connext, so definitely tune in for that. Felix, Xavier, thanks so much again. Have a great retreat, by the way. Enjoy it. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you, Niall, and thanks to the community for watching, tuning into this.
Thanks, everyone.
Delegate your Covalent to us.
Yeah, shill at the
end. Find us on Chorus.one, Telegram, Twitter. Our Twitter handles are ZeroZave and Felix LTS. Feel free to follow us, reply to our tweets, shitpost, whatever you feel like.
Yeah. Sweet, guys. Thanks a million. All right. See you later. Bye-bye.